Edo period of Japanese history under the Tokugawa shogunate was one of relative peace and prosperity. An emerging merchant class in the outside trade that they brought introduced luxury and leisure time to the people of Japan. The observation of the moon, watching the cherry blossoms bloom, and the crafting and appreciation of art became standard practice for people of all castes. Floating world arts and entertainment, as they were known, were based on the transient earthly pleasures newly available to a whole new class, and it would birth things like kabuki theater, woodblock art such as Hokusai's Great Wave off of Kanagawa, and other pieces that live iconically to this day. In a way, this decadence is a precursor to today's Japanese culture of the cute and stylized that has so infiltrated the West. This emergence of earthly pleasures was the result of stability and stood in the face of Bushido, the warrior's way. The way of the samurai that had come before, a class of power and importance based on vigilance, violence, and discipline. Many in Edo-era Japan lamented the loss of these qualities and longed to return to the way of Bushido, of fighting spirit, of discipline, order, and purity. In the decades following the brutal imperial dominance of Emperors Taisho and Hirohito, the devastation of World War II, and the American military occupation of the post-war years, Japan experienced the economic miracle, an industrial and technological renaissance that brought their economy from barely existent to amongst the strongest in the world. This again allowed for decadence, leisure, luxuries, and the pleasures of the floating world, and a new kabuki, puroresu, professional wrestling. As the economy began to stagnate and the housing bubble that such rapid prosperity had brought seemed primed to burst, the fighting spirit of Bushido grew in appeal. The floating world was losing its luster, and a return to hard-nosed discipline was eagerly awaited. Some enterprising men sought to capture the spirit of Bushido and reinvent the floating world in its image. These men would lay the foundation for a return to Bushido inside the rings and cages of combat sports arenas across Japan and eventually the globe. These were the men of the UWF and the disciples of Yukai, who would form modern MMA in Japan's lost decade. All right, everybody, we're back here in sunny Calgary, Alberta, Canada, where the temperature has gone up 23 degrees in the last 14 hours.
14 hours, yeah.
So we're pretty excited. We can go outside again without getting angry the second we even step near the door. I'm here with my main man, Javi. We've got Jimmy on the back doing production. Mic'd up, that's right.
No more. No, we haven't put anything out.
Give me that snap. Give me that snap. I want to hear it. That's right. That's right.
It's coolest in a box right there.
We're in the new studio, the new Catch Chronicles BJJ studio.
I wonder if I was gonna say if we could just like play it off as if nothing had happened and we like just pretend like this is a new space, but with
we just got a new green screen.
That's it. It's really good.
Just got a new green screen. It gives you beer.
It's the best green screen.
And we're here today to talk about the UWF for the working man. So the UWF is kind of... Last week we talked about Inoki and Ali, the fight...
The fight of the century.
The fight that kind of... the worst fight of the century. You forgot the worst part.
Sorry.
So the fight that predicated mixed martial arts, that inspired a lot of mixed martial arts, and you see that inspiration take hold in the UWF. Now, are you familiar with the UWF?
I'm not. I've never,
okay.
No.
And a lot of people are. For a lot of people, it's kind of lost in the mud of MMA's past. And the main reason for that is because it was a work, right?
What does UWF stand for?
UWF means Ultimate Wrestling Federation, and it's very easy to confuse because not only were there several more like incarnations of the UWF in Japan later.
Okay, and then this is a Japanese.
This is a Japanese wrestling promotion. There was also a Universal Wrestling Federation out of Oklahoma and Louisiana in the 80s.
Okay.
Run by Bill Watts, which was really good. If you like worked pro wrestling, check out that UWF. And then there was another one in the 90s run by this guy Herb Abrams, who, if you have ever seen Dark Side of the Ring, you're probably familiar with for being one of the craziest motherfuckers to ever enter one of the craziest businesses there is. Like, this dude, like, well, I think he died, like, he jumped out of a window covered in baby oil and cocaine, running from the cops, surrounded by prostitutes. Like, real interesting cat.
That is a very strong.
So
visual.
those UWFs might be a little easier to find on Google.
Okay.
This UWF, way more important.
And this is started in the.
This starts in 1984,
84.
and it starts because Antonio Inoki, who we've spoken about before, president, main star of New Japan Pro Wrestling, is siphoning funds from the company to inject into his own company. He's got a health supplement business, and he's been embezzling money from New Japan Pro Wrestling to put into this supplement business, which is another reason you never trust a man with a supplement business. You never trust a man with a supplement business. All right?
I think that's a hard period. Like supplements. So you say just no supplements in general?
Supplements are fine, but the dude who runs it's probably a piece of shit.
Okay, fair.
And they're not fine if you bought them from InfoWars. Grow up. So, Inoki being the guy that he is, bit of a Teflon Don for most of his life, he makes Hisashi Shinma take the fall. Hisashi Shinma, executive of New Japan Pro Wrestling, Inoki's manager, he was the guy who did the negotiating for the Ali fight.
Right.
He's the guy when they were fleecing him about the rules that he took his watch off and threw it on the table and said, well, you take this too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shinma, very loyal foot soldier. So he takes the fall, he resigns, he gets a 25 million yen payout for his resignation. Kind of a severance package.
Okay, how much
like bankers do.
Yeah.
I think it was probably around $200,000 or $300,000 American at that time.
Right. Decent payday.
A decent payday for the 80s.
Right.
You know, it's not like what a banker makes when they fuck up, but, you know, pretty good. So I think it's fair to say that Inoki's got his fingers in this pot a little bit. You know what I mean? He's probably got a little control. But Shinma uses that money to start the UWF, the Ultimate Wrestling Federation. And he takes a bunch of New Japan wrestlers with him who, the thing, like, in Japan, scandal is a really big deal in a way that is kind of hard for people to comprehend. Maybe in, like, American culture, because America's so full of scandal. Scandal is, like, our favorite thing.
There's a show called Scandal, yeah.
Yeah, we got a show called Scandal. It does great. Scandal is like, if your career's going down in America, in the UK, in Canada, just have a scandal. How much money, like, the Kardashians would not be, we wouldn't know who they were if there wasn't a sex tape released.
Of course.
They've made billions of dollars off of a leaked sex tape with a D-grade rapper. You know what I mean? But
different in Japan, right?
In Japan, that doesn't work. In
the
Japan,
honor culture is so much more.
A lot of honor.
Yeah.
There's a wrestler from Japan named Taka Michinoku who was actually, he was in America. He was in the WWF for the late 90s and early 2000s. So people kind of know about him. Taka Michinoku, a few years ago, got caught cheating on his wife and retired.
Like that was
he was fired from New Japan.
Wow.
For cheating on his wife.
Which is
is
that what wrestlers do, basically?
That's like a third of the reason to get in the business.
Right.
You know? So this is a very different culture. So a lot of wrestlers leave New Japan because of the scandal.
Wow. Okay.
So they go with Shinma to start UWF. So, like, Rusher Kimura, Gran Amata, Akira Maeda, who is a very important name in MMA. Carl Gotch, who we've spoken of, leaves to go be the head trainer of the UWF.
Right, you mentioned this in his episode, right?
Yeah, and it starts very much as just regular pro wrestling at that point.
Okay.
It's just another pro wrestling company. But then they get Yoshiaki Fujiwara, young guys, Kazuya Yamazaki, Nobuhiko Takada, and then it starts to become a little more strong style.
And is that in part because of Gotch, right? Like
that's mostly because of Gotch, and it's because they've kind of got the opportunity. And a lot of these guys are these are dudes who grew up doing martial arts of one form or another.
Sure.
Judo, amateur wrestling, kickboxing, karate. And then they get the real boost. Because at this point, they're just a struggling company. They've got some steam. you know, like an AEW when it first started, kind of thing where you're the new kids on the block. There are some attached names who are big draws, and there's basically been 2 real wrestling federations in Japan for the last 10 years, which is
like the third up and comer.
So this is the third. There have been some smaller ones, but they never took off.
Yeah.
And then they get Satoru Sayama, who will have his own episode. But just for a brief, Satoru Sayama, known as Tiger Mask.
Oh, okay, right.
So Tiger Mask, he was a really small guy for wrestling at the time. Now he'd probably be an average guy. But at the time he was quite small. He trained in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but then he was kind of sent around the world because they didn't really know what to do with him. So he went to England and learned English style. He went to Calgary and learned Calgarian kind of... with the Hearts. Learned American style. He went to Mexico and learned Lucha Libre. And then he was brought back to Japan and given this gimmick of Tiger Mask. And Tiger Mask was a really popular anime, like Astro Boy.
Oh, it was the anime before. I thought it was
anime
written about him afterwards. Okay.
No, it was an anime about wrestling.
Oh shit! Okay.
Which we've spoken about before when we were talking about Billy Robinson.
Just leave more towards
Sorry.
the mic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Javi, notoriously quiet.
Yeah. That's really been my issue in my life.
Yeah, mostly a lot of complaints about not being able to hear you.
No issues at work at all with.
No, never been any issues with work, house
Of
parties,
course not.
poker
People
games.
will watch this and be like, now he shuts the fuck up.
Yeah.
On his podcast.
Oh, he's so calm.
Turn out my mic just a little bit there. It's just
Which one's yours?
on the second dial, just that top red dial. Hold on. No.
Okay.
New studio, folks. New studio.
Oh, okay, here.
Just a little bit more to get there.
Sure. All right. Apologies.
All good. We
I'm the
got.
sound guy. He's the visual guy. So yeah, we're sorting our shit out. And he's obviously just talented.
I'm just the handsome guy.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's, you almost want to be more central
Yeah.
to the mic. It's perfect. Like the way you just were then, perfect.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
We're not editing this out.
No.
Absolutely not. Live with it. Live with the process.
Absolutely.
Come on the journey with us. Okay?
Yes, exactly.
So,
Sorry.
Sayama's brought back to Japan. Given this Tiger Mask gimmick, it's already a huge smash hit.
Right.
Saturday morning cartoon. So they dress up, they give him a cape. He's got this furry tiger mask with like little fur coming off the sides of it. And he changes wrestling. Like, wrestling as we know it today would not exist without Satoru Sayama.
Jesus.
Like, he blends kind of hard-hitting, technical British style
Cool.
with Mexican high-flying lucha libre and Japanese, like, kind of martial arts. So he blends all these things together, and with the help of, like, a few English guys, like Mark Rollerball, Rocco, and Dynamite Kid. Dynamite Kid, who, of course, big Calgary guy,
Yeah.
but he's an English fella. He's a Wigan guy.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
the way I might have heard of him.
Yeah.
Okay.
They changed the way wrestling is presented by it's hard hitting and it's fast paced, and they're doing backflips. You know what I mean? They're doing really interesting stuff, and Dynamite ends up in a wheelchair because of that. But Sayama is a huge star, but he's a junior. He's a junior heavyweight.
And is he like a huge star for wrestling, or is he a huge star just in Japan now at this point?
Well, I mean, he's a huge star. You got to remember that wrestling was like just behind baseball
Right.
in Japan, right? Like wrestling was huge, mainstream. They cover it in the newspapers to this day,
Okay.
like it's legit. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah, they know it's not, but they just
Cover it
but
like
they
it's
like to
regular
cover it.
sport? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
the year-end Nippon Sports. There's the wrestler of the year. There's the match of the year. Like they cover it the way that's Sports Illustrated covers wrestling now, except for they don't sound like fucking idiots. So Sayama leaves New Japan because he's sick of the fact that he's the biggest star
Yeah.
and he's probably the best fighter, but he's too small to be the main event.
Okay.
Even though he's revolutionized the business.
Because what is he walking around like 170 kind of thing?
He's
Like,
probably in the 170, 180 region.
Yeah.
You know, probably 5'10 or whatever, 5'9.
most of those boys at this point they're mostly heavyweights.
A lot of,
220s, 230s.
Olympic amateur wrestlers, former sumos, big boys. And like in Japan, the cultures get bigger, not get ripped. So they're eating and they're strong and they're conditioned, but
Right.
nobody's ripped. They're just trying to get big.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is
Right.
sumo culture.
Which is so interesting how just the different ideologies, like the different goals in these different cultures.
Yeah, and it's still that way. Like you don't see a lot of shredded guys in a Japanese wrestling show.
Right. It's just
They're
big, meaty.
they're big meaty dudes slapping meat. Yeah. Find a better way to say it. There isn't. There's no better way to say it.
Just gonna be the tagline for the episode.
Big meat
slapping meat.
I think I stole it. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I lifted that one.
I'm assuming.
A shout out to What Culture Wrestling. So he joins UWF, and now they've got a real star.
Yeah.
So now they're promoting bigger shows, but they're also running in to a lot of problems because Sayama wants to do everything Sayama's way. Stars. So he wants to make this, and I think he's not the only one. I would say Fujiwara, Karl Gotch, and Maeda are all kind of on board with this idea of turning UWF into something that doesn't look fake.
Okay.
So they stopped doing schmaz finishes. So they stopped doing DQs and countouts. Because that's a big trope in wrestling, and especially in that time, and especially in Japan, where like you almost never see a real win or a real loss.
Because everyone's trying to save face a little bit.
Everyone's trying to stay strong.
Right.
Nobody wants to lose.
Honor culture.
So you know what? We're just gonna have a disqualification. The American's a bad man, and he hit him with the bell. So now the match is over, but nobody really lost, and nobody really won, and we can get a return. The fans were pretty sick of seeing it. These guys were sick of doing it. They started having real finishes, legit finishes, where, all right, you're going to get knocked out, you're going to submit, or you're going to get pinned. That's it. But there's some, like, kind of styles differences, some philosophical differences between Shinma, Gotch, and Maeda, who kind of want it to be still grappling with some strikes. And Sayama, who's got a kickboxing background, who wants it to be strikes.
Flashier, spinning back kicks and
Yeah,
shit.
and like and he doesn't care for an armbar.
Because armbars suck.
And he also doesn't care for losing. And Maeda also does not care for losing, and Maeda loves an armbar. So they start getting into matches where they're kind of teeing off on each other. Some of these matches are turning into shoots. They're turning into real fights because these guys aren't playing ball. And the whole locker room kind of hates Sayama. They're sick of his shit. This all culminates with Shinma leaving. So the guy who started the company, the guy who got canned from New Japan over the scandal, started the UWF. He resigns. He is sick of Sayama's shit. They're not getting along.
Fucking up for.
They leave. Sayama and Maeda get into a fight, and like Maeda's a big boy, so it doesn't really matter which one of these men is more skilled. They're both skilled, and one of them is a lot bigger. Sayama's not going to win.
Yeah.
So they have a few of these kind of situations. They're the number 1 and 2 star. Maeda's going to New York. Sayama's going to New York. They're running titles for the WWF. They're getting promoted there quite heavily. In the last match that they have together, Maeda just kicks him in the groin.
Like, actually.
Straight up kicks him in the groin. Match is ended. They end up firing Maeda. So, Maeda's gone. Number 2 star's gone. Number 1 star is all that's left. Sayama's got a lot of star power.
Pull now.
But he's got more pull. Everyone's sick of him. The other star left. The president left. And they can't get any TV. Now, this is going to be a recurring theme. They can't get any TV because they're Yakuza affiliated. You know what else is Yakuza affiliated? Everything that's ever had fight in it in Japan. Right? Sumo, boxing, almost every wrestling promotion. We're going to hear a lot about them with pride.
Interesting.
Yakuza, but this is like everybody knows. Like at one point, like a Yakuza guy goes and shakes down Sayama's manager to try to get him out of some contract. Like fucking The Godfather. You know what I mean? Like they tried to make him an offer he couldn't refuse.
Terrifying.
That guy goes to the press. Now everybody knows that the Yakuza is involved.
Which,
Honor culture.
yeah.
They don't
They just
play ball. Even though everybody knows the Yakuza's got his fingers in everything,
Anyway.
nobody wants to play ball with it, let alone these massive TV networks in a pre-cable era, right? There's only probably three stations.
Shit, yeah.
So all of them know, none of them want to play ball.
So they're just making money off just the door, right?
They're just doing the door.
Okay.
That doesn't last forever, especially when you have fights that break down into nothing and you've lost all of your stars. So they start in 84. In 86, the company's done.
Damn. Just like that.
Boom. The original UWF is done. Sayama leaves the wrestling business. Straight up.
Had enough.
He goes and starts working on Shudo. Which Shudo is known as a promotion, but Shudo really starts as a martial art.
Yeah.
Like the idea is Shudo is it's the new Jeet Kune Do. It's a new martial art.
That's how I first heard about it. I knew about the organization afterwards. I knew it as a martial art first and foremost.
And it takes the name Shudo from shoot wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a carnival term, which is so funny. The rest of the promotion, the rest of the roster pretty much returns to New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is really interesting for one main reason is that they come back as an invading force. That's the storyline.
Oh, interesting.
Is that they come back as like the roster of another promotion that's coming in to fuck up New Japan, which is where WCW got the idea for the NWO for wrestling fans. So the NWO in the 90s really kind of like the NWO was this idea that these two guys, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, came from the WWF, went to WCW, and were there to take over WCW. And then Hulk Hogan joined them. And Hulk Hogan became a bad guy for the first time in
interesting.
20 years or whatever, 15 years. And that actually is the reason why wrestling was so big in the 90s, is this storyline, this angle in WCW took wrestling from being almost a dying business to then that mixed with Stone Cold Steve Austin and the WWF, making it like ubiquitous in pop culture. Like you couldn't get away from wrestling when I was a kid.
Right.
And it's because they stole this angle from Japan.
Which they didn't really try to plan as much, just kind of happened a bit more organically.
This kind of just this was just kind of like, well, this is an idea. Here they go. Because everybody knows these guys left because they hated it here. And now they're back, so why not just make it they're here to fuck everything up?
That's kind of cool.
This does not last long, though. And the reason this doesn't last long is because Akira Maeda is a despicable bastard.
Wow.
He really is. Like, he accomplished a lot. He's very important in the story of MMA. I'd say he's the Van Morrison of mixed martial arts. Nobody likes him. His funeral will be empty, but he is a genius.
Okay.
He can't play ball. He refuses to play ball. He wants to be the number one star. He doesn't want to lose to anybody. At one point, they get Andre the Giant drunk and send him to the ring to fight Maeda to teach him a lesson, which
Put him in his place.
doesn't work. It doesn't work because Maeda's he's pulling the full Inoki. He's just kicking him. He's just dancing around, kicking him in the legs, kicking the shit out of his legs to the point where Inoki has to come down with a bunch of other wrestlers and interfere in the match just to make it end because it's despicable. Like, it's just terrible. Andre's clearly wasted. You know what I mean? He's wasted trying to teach this kid a lesson, but he's too big and fucking oafish to get a hold of him to teach him anything. So he's just getting his legs knocked out.
God damn.
That wasn't a good look for Maeda. A little heat on him for that. Then, in the middle of a 6-man match, he walks into the ring, and a guy named Riki Choshu, who's a badass Olympic wrestler, has a sharpshooter, which is, for a wrestling fan, it's Bret Hart's finishing move. It's like a leg hold, like a Boston Crab kind of leg hold.
Yeah.
And he just walks up and kicks him as hard as he can in the eye. Breaks his orbital bone.
Happens, yeah.
And the Japanese crowd loves it. They love this shit. It's just like that Ricky Dozan Kimura thing where like it's a cheap shot and they love him for it. So shortly after that, Maeda's fired.
Good.
Who'd have thought? And he also pussies out, right? Because Choshu gets up, broken orbital bone, and is like, "Get back in the ring and fight me right now." But Choshu is an Olympic level wrestler,
Like,
and now his hands literally aren't tied to the way they were when Maeda kicked him. So Maeda doesn't get back in the ring to fight him like a man. So Maeda goes to start newborn UWF. UWF round 2.
Okay, they have to come up with better, like, just, there's lots of words.
Oh,
in the,
do the
like,
Japanese
why
have a bad time naming things in English?
Damn, that's fair.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah, that's
Reggae hairstyle, rock and roll. So the newborn UWF starts, and this one's going to be a little more shoot,
less work.
but still worked.
Okay.
But even more shoot looking.
Focused. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, like the
Less
super strong
theatrics.
stuff. And it's the first part of what they call yukai in Japan. And yukai is a style of wrestling from UWF.
Okay.
I think it basically means like UWF like.
Fair.
So a bunch of like everything that comes after that, UWF Reborn, UWFI, Rings, Fujiwara Gamo or Gumai, Shudo, Pancrase, Pride. These are all considered yukai.
Okay.
Yeah, these
okay,
things
okay,
are all
okay.
considered a part of the UWF lineage.
Right. We give him a microphone. He's just dropping.
I know he's
Really?
dropping shit. Like an amateur
I
hour.
was literally like, half an hour ago over that.
We're sitting right here, man. sorry.
Fuck, these pens, they're ubiquitous. You can't get away from
It's
them.
Canada, man.
Ugh. Get some real drugs. What are you, in high school?
Yeah, no more illegal drugs for me. I'm
Only nose drugs here at
I'm a good boy now.
Anyway.
Anyway.
So they restart the newborn UWF.
Right.
They take all the guys that went back to New Japan, they all go with Maeda. Because Maeda's got this cult around him. Not Sayama. Sayama is just doing Shudo, and around the time of this, he's starting to organize the first amateur Shudo competitions.
Okay. Is it like tournament style back then? Or did
I actually don't really know. I will be doing a Shudo episode,
Sure.
but it's been pretty difficult to find a lot of stuff in English on Shudo.
wouldn't mind.
And as many books as I'm reading, I'm not learning Japanese, guys. I'm not doing it.
Okay.
So they start this new company, and they bring with them Maeda, Yoji Anjo, and Maeda's kind of main boy, Nobuhiko Takada.
Okay.
That one gives me a lot of trouble.
I think it's good to me.
Yeah, the third time. And they explode. They do great. They launch in 88, and they're killing it. They're selling out the Tokyo Dome, right? They're filling tens of thousands of people for these shows. They eventually, in 89, they have a sit-down meeting with Inoki, and they get Inoki to let Fujiwara out of his contract to go join this new shoot-based promotion. Fujiwara brings with him Masakatsu Funaki and Minoru Suzuki, who are his two best young pupils, who of course go on to found Pancrase, are huge names in MMA.
Yeah.
And Kiyoshi Tamura, who is one of the most decorated MMA fighters of all time in Japan. I mean, his Pride record is crazy. His worked record is crazy. But his shoot, like he beat Gracie's.
Like good shit.
He legitimately beat
Anyone
Gracie's.
who's
He
Gracie
beat
is a-
Funaki. He beat Sakuraba.
Shit.
Like he's a great fighter. So they bring these guys in. They make a new scoring system that like has points for takedowns and things like that. But pretty quick, Maeda starts fighting with everybody.
There's a theme.
There's a theme here with our good friend Akira Maeda. Don't get mad at me though, Maeda. I don't want to fight you, man. So Maeda's the first president, but of course, as is tradition in wrestling companies in Japan, they very quickly get like a new president that the money guy wants in charge, right? The money guys, mostly Yakuza, they don't see eye to eye because Jin just wants to make money.
Yeah.
He knows it's a work. He doesn't really understand why he's not taking opportunities to work with other working promotions, right? So there's this really awesome, famous pro wrestler in Japan at the time, Junichiro Tenryu, who's like former sumo, super charismatic, hell wrestler. He wrestled into his 60s, like
Jesus.
and he was his whole gimmick when I was a kid. When I would see him when I was a tape trader in the late days of tape trading before we could just go on YouTube and watch everything. Where like he was just a grumpy old man. He would fight young guys and just punch them in the face and stuff. Like that was his gimmick. He was a grumpy old dude who was still like a bad motherfucker.
That's a great game.
He started his own promotion that worked very heavily with the WWF. Shinji Jin, this new president.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that kind of common for wrestling where you will have these crossovers between?
Yeah. For a long time, it wasn't. There's even starting to do it right now. Like the WWE is working with like TNA wrestling,
Okay.
and then AEW, which is the alternative to the WWE, is kind of working with a lot of Mexican promotions, and they're working with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Oh, interesting.
So at the time, you would do talent trades because you got to like at the time. The WWF was national; it wasn't global.
Right.
So if they wanted to go to Japan and promote a show, they would do a lot better if they promoted it with a Japanese wrestling company. So the Super World Sports promotion started by Tenryu. Gran Hamada leaves and starts like a lucha libre company in Japan, and Shinji Jin wants to promote with them because he thinks that they can promote bigger shows and exchange talent and have more money. They can make more money. Maeda does not want to do this, which, for what it's worth, like I think Maeda's got a point here where he's like, but that shit's really fake, and our shit's secretly fake.
Okay.
I'm sorry for saying fake, guys. Scripted, predetermined. So Maeda does not want to do it, and and they're starting to lose gate. Their gates are going down because they're not letting anyone be like a new star, really. Takada, Nobuhiko Takada. It's just a hard name, Takada. He's kind of the number 2 guy, but he's really not.
Not a huge pull.
It's like playing Mario Kart and you're lapping people, right? Like Maeda's lapping everybody as far as the way he's promoted.
Yeah.
Everyone else, like, there's not a lot of competition for him. They bring in Americans for him to fight, but they're not super charismatic Americans. A lot of them are like bringing in Shamrock.
Really?
Nobody knows who Ken Shamrock is at this point.
And not
he's
charismatic.
he's a yeah, and
I wanna look at him, just don't
and
talk.
Ken Shamrock is the most charismatic of the bunch.
It's true.
You know what I mean? At least he looks great.
Does.
Maurice Smith is coming over, but like Maurice Smith's not like you don't put him on a poster.
No.
He's a hell of a fighter.
Hell of a
but,
fighter.
but he's not like a super captivating looking fella.
He was one of my favorites in the early UFC.
Oh, he was great.
He was great.
He was a great fighter.
Yeah.
And he went on to be a great legit fighter. And at the time he was getting paid a lot of money to go to Japan and lose.
Sick.
And at the same time, the Japanese economy takes a massive downturn. The Nikkei stock index falls to like half of its peak at one point. This is after the Black Friday kind of
Equivalent here.
recession in America.
Yeah.
The housing market pretty much collapses. They call it like, and to the point where like I think the housing market land price increases year over year did not occur again until 2018. Think about that.
Back in like the
That's like 30 years,
Oh.
pretty much. Which is why you can still go, like, you can buy a house in Japan for chips, right? Like,
Really?
cheapest chips. Just so cheap to this day to buy a house in Japan.
Assuming-
And they called the 90s the lost decade in Japan because there's just economic stagnation.
Wow.
A country that, like, really,
after the war and everything.
after the war had that economic miracle,
Yeah.
and then they kind of push, and they flatlined.
Okay.
This is not great for a company that's kind of living hand to mouth, right? This is It's like the restaurant business, you know what I mean? This is a cash flow company, not an assets company.
yeah,
They don't have a lot of actual assets. Um,
So if they're not running shows, they're in real trouble.
they're not running shows all the time and drawing.
Yeah.
So by 1990, they're done. Boom.
No one has the money.
December 1st, 1990, UWF's done. And it's actually weird because the UWF that I was talking about in America, the one out of
Yes.
Oklahoma and Louisiana,
Yeah.
in the late 80s, the Oklahoma oil industry kind of collapses.
So it.
And that kills them. Like, that business goes out the same way. There's like a great story about them sending I think Jim Crockett sent like a representative down to Louisiana to see one of these shows that Bill Watts was holding.
Yeah.
And the guy calls Jim Crockett back up and he goes, "Jimmy, there's no prostitutes." And Jim goes, "Well, I don't care." And he goes, "No, this is New Orleans. If I can't find a prostitute in New Orleans, there's no money to be made here."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a kind of weird comparison there. Kind of like that fake JFK Abraham Lincoln thing that we all
Right.
grew up reading that wasn't real at all.
But UFOs are fucking nuts.
Jury's out.
Watch the Netflix special, bro.
You know what I always believe?
Research.
A Netflix special.
That's it.
After that, I'm going to watch my Graham Hancock documentary.
That's it.
So from here, the newborn UWF,
Yeah.
still a work. Now it's done. But this one immediately splinters into more U-Kai, more UWF offshoots.
Yeah.
Fujiwara, by this time, has started pro wrestling Fujiwara Gumai. Don't ask me what that means. I don't know.
Hell of a name.
He takes Suzuki and Funaki, and they take Shinji Jin, and they do the cross promotion. So they're working with Gran Hamada's Universal Lucha Libre. They're working with SWS. They're just doing wrestling. It's just wrestling.
Wrestle.
Pure wrestle. Maeda goes on to found Fighting Network Rings, which is another. At the beginning, it's another UWF style, predetermined but very believable looking wrestling promotion. Eventually, when MMA starts to really take over in Japan, Rings becomes a legit
They realize
company.
This is where things are going.
Mostly. Then there's Nobuhiko
Got it.
Takada. And he starts the UWFI. The newest UWF. The third UWF. Although it does mean Union of Wrestling Forces International. So it's
So much
kind
clearer.
of different.
It's way clearer now.
Again, another like classic kind of this must make sense in Japan, but this is really
Yes.
ugly to say in English.
Totally different.
And this continues to be a work. In theory. There are a few incidents where it's not a work. So he starts in May 91. And Takada is a super interesting guy because he's been kind of Maeda's right-hand man. He's Maeda's biggest fanboy. He follows him everywhere. That match where Maeda kicks Riki Choshu in the face and breaks his face,
Yeah.
Takada's his partner that day. You know what I mean? He follows him everywhere he goes. But now Takada's ready to be his own man. He starts this new promotion, and he's got a lot of experience, not just from Takada, but he's someone who was Antonio Inoki and Hulk Hogan's personal assistant.
Oh.
So when Hogan was in Japan,
Yeah.
his go-to, his handler, was Takada. The rest of the time, Takada worked very personally with Inoki. Takada had his first outside match of Japan. His first excursion was in Calgary because he came
Oh shit.
to replace Tiger Mask with Antonio Inoki for the Stampede. He is a student of Fujiwara and a student of Gotch. He's known as being like someone when he was younger was quite a good legit wrestler, a good catch wrestler. Like Funaki and Suzuki would say later that like in the 80s, he would toss them around like children. Like, they couldn't keep up with him. But by the early 90s, he's pretty beaten up. He's getting older.
Wrestling's hard on the body.
He's not going to be doing a whole lot of shoots. You know what I mean? So he kind of starts being the man, and he books himself as the top guy. And he very quickly makes himself look like a star by, I mean, probably mistakenly knocking out Bob Backlund in one of the first shows. And Bob Backlund, NCAA wrestler, but he was the WWF champion before Hulk Hogan.
Holy shit. Okay.
For like 6 years or something.
Oh.
He was the top guy in New York. He lost it to the Iron Sheik. The Iron Sheik lost it to Hulk Hogan. He did look like Howdy Doody. He was one of the most boring wrestlers I've ever seen.
Howdy Doody.
He looks so much like Howdy Doody. We're going to have to Google that. Not a very captivating guy, but he's got a lot of pedigree on his name.
Okay.
And he was a legit great amateur standout wrestler.
So big deal, he gets knocked the fuck out.
And he takes a body kick a minute and 15 seconds into this fight that gives him like a TKO. Like, he can't continue. There's almost a riot. The crowd turns. It's a pretty bad situation. But it does, by all accounts, seem to have been a mistake, because Backlund came back and did another match with him.
Okay.
So there's no hard feelings, or there was a lot of money. And then Takada has another very famous match early on with Trevor Berbick. And Trevor Berbick is a Jamaican boxer. He fought Ali's last fight.
Oh, shit.
And then later he became the heavyweight champion and lost the title to Tyson for Tyson's first heavyweight title.
I've seen that fight. Oh, shit.
The match where Tyson punishes Berbick for having beat up an old Muhammad Ali.
Right.
Basically. Like,
Yeah.
Tyson
beat
him a lot worse than he needed to.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it's a total ass kicking. So they bring Trevor Berbick on the tail end of his career, which is weird. Berbick's like the Canadian heavyweight champion in the 2000s. His fight career is really long, in between stints in prison for raping a babysitter. So
Jesus.
anything that Trevor Berbick ever got in his life, he probably fucking deserved as far as punishment is concerned. It sounds awful just to say that word. So they bring Berbick over. And by all accounts, it seems that they explained to Berbick how this was going to work. It was going to be an exhibition or it was going to be a shoot. It seems to be difficult to determine because apparently Berbick didn't understand the concept.
Yeah.
And apparently he wouldn't listen to anything, including the rules for the fight. So they get in the ring and Takada starts kicking him, kind of leg kicks.
Yeah.
And Berbick's just constantly complaining that, like, these are illegal. You're not allowed to kick below the knee. And the referee's trying to say, like, no, yes, he can. Yeah. Also, this is probably a work. But, and then eventually Takada kicks him in the head, and Berbick just gets out and leaves. Just gets out of the ring. Doesn't leave the ring. He leaves the building. Like, he just goes, gets his shit, and leaves. Which makes Takada look great. Because this
quit,
heavyweight boxing champion
Yeah.
is afraid to fight Takada.
Yeah.
Right?
Obviously.
Sure. So they continue this kind of trend of having Takada bring over these big guys who are legit looking and have very legit looking matches, and he likes to bring over Americans because that's the classic Japanese trope. They don't eliminate that.
Good guy, bad guy.
So they bring over Gary Albright as kind of one of the big stars of UWFI, who's a standout Montana amateur wrestler who then goes and trains for the ring with the Anoa'i family. So he's technically a part of the bloodline for any modern pro wrestling fans. So he's related to he marries one of Roman Reigns' cousins. So he's married to the daughter of Afa the Samoan. None of these names make any sense to you.
Nothing, right.
But he's technically related to The Rock in a way.
Oh,
So
okay.
the bloodline is this big thing with all the Samoan wrestlers.
You
And
mentioned
there's
this,
so
yeah.
many of them.
Yes.
And like a lot of them aren't related. They're like Samoan blood brothers, which means you're not related at all. But like you're
cousin, but cousin.
like like your dad's best friend. You might have called him
Yes,
uncle.
Yes, 100%.
Kind of like that kind of situation.
Yeah.
So he's married into this family. He actually dies in the ring.
Jesus.
Yeah, he has a heart attack. Later, not in the UWFI. So he's kind of the first big guy that they bring over as just a big suplexing, legit looking mulleted American. Also a dude who broke his teeth in Calgary. It always comes back to Calgary. And then they replace him with Big Van Vader, which if anyone's ever seen Vader wrestle, they know he's like one of the best big man wrestlers of all time. Could do a moonsault. Was very punishing.
Terrifying.
A stiff, smelly bastard by all accounts. Not an easy man to work with, but a great fucking wrestler to watch. And they have Lou Thez, who was a big NWA champion in the 50s, one of the last kind of legit shooter hooker kind of wrestlers to come over and present his NWA title to Takada and, you know, go into the press and say all other wrestling is fake, but this is real. Classic move from Carney Lou Thez.
That's a strong statement there.
And they have some really great years of pro wrestling. That wasn't even the pen this time, was it?
No, there's a slight wobble on the.
Oh yeah, blame the stool.
It is.
Yeah. So they have a few really good years, but then business starts to slow down because real fighting is happening now. Because this starts in 91. By 93, you've got Pancrase, you've got UFC, you've got...
Do you know when Pancrase started?
Pancrase starts in 90... I think they have their first show like a couple months before the first UFC.
Right.
Very, very short period, but they are ahead. And also Sayama's Shudo is holding the Vale Tudo Japan fights just a little bit before. They actually start in the late 80s. Like Shudo's having legit fights pretty early. And then UFC happens, and that 93. Very quickly kind of moves into Japan.
Yeah,
so
do you
people,
know how well it was? Do you know how well the UFC was received in Japan? I'm not sure.
I think it was just received quite well.
Yeah.
But they'd already seen it, right? Like it wasn't brand new the way it was here.
Okay.
In America, it was brand
Shocking.
fucking new.
Shocking.
Like, and it was also like you couldn't believe how brutal it was, which was.
Some of those early fights.
There was a little more structure in Japan.
Okay.
Not always, but a little more. Like hair pulling was never shots to the groin. These things were not accepted in Japan.
I think wasn't the first two rules only no eye gouge and fish hooking? I think those were the only two rules.
The only two rules that anyone, because the Dutch kickboxers were upset that they couldn't kick you in the balls, And there was some stuff like where it's like, oh yeah, he'd dig his thumb into his eye.
Well, that's
and like he'd like feel bad, but he just liked winning. Like I really didn't want to do it, but okay. All right, fine. You really didn't want to do it. So all of these things are kind of diminishing the business of UWFI because now people know what it looks like to see a real fight.
Yeah.
So it's pretty hard to keep pretending.
Yeah.
Like the difference between catching a leg and shooting your leg out to be caught. It's pretty easy to spot. But at the time, before all of this MMA stuff, people didn't know, right? It's the headlock punch kick rule, right? Everyone's been in a headlock, everyone's been punched, everyone's been kicked.
Yeah.
Those are the things you have to really work on.
Because people can relate to them.
Yeah. Everything else, you can kind of pantomime. So because of this, they actually end up doing the thing that Maeda never wanted to do, which is they start working with a real worked pro wrestling company. They start working with New Japan Pro Wrestling.
So
and
they have to move back to
They have to move back towards it.
Yeah.
So they do a kind of company versus company thing where the UWF guys are going to New Japan, the New Japan guys are going to UWF, and they have some really great gates. Like they do some real business. Takada's working mostly with this guy, Keiji Muto, who, for my money, is the greatest pro wrestler that ever lived. He just retired last year. He was famous in America as the Great Muda, which was like a face-painted Japanese gimmick where he'd spit poison mist in people's faces.
Jesus.
Which, like, even I think was rad. Like, I think it was...
He's hard to impress.
I think I hate gimmicks. I love the Great Muda. I think Keiji Muto is the perfect wrestler. He's selling out the Tokyo Dome with them. They're doing great business. And as soon as that's done, so is the UWFI. That's it. Because on their own, they're not doing anything. Yeah. And on their own, New Japan's not doing a lot either. It is a very mutually beneficial relationship. But New Japan has 30 years of assets.
Yeah.
They can survive a down period. UWFI can't. So that's pretty much the end of the UWFI, which is the last really important step of the UWF.
So that's really, it's taking us from like 80s to mid 90s now.
Yeah,
Basically.
84 to 96 is
Right.
pretty much the span of the importance of the UWF brand.
Okay,
Because they're
okay.
three different companies.
Yeah.
But
it
the
all
brand
kind of-
is
yeah.
the brand is the thing that holds it together. The concept of UWF, which is we're not fake fighting.
Yeah.
They are,
But
but the premise is that they're not.
Yeah.
But something that we're not going to talk about a lot today, because it's going to be next episode, something extremely important comes out of this, which is pride.
Right.
At the end of UWFI, Takada's next step is to promote real fights.
Right.
Because, A, they want to prove that wrestling is the superior martial art,
As a theme we've heard over and over and over again, and will continue to hear.
and B, they don't know how else to make money. They've never done anything else,
Yeah.
right? So they got to keep going. And there's a lot of Gracie baiting that finally culminates in the creation of Pride Fighting Championships to promote Nobuhiko, nailed it, Takada, as the world's greatest fighter. Here's a spoiler. He ain't. But we're going to save that. We're going to save that for next time. Now, Javi, tell me, what do you think about this story?
It's fascinating because as someone who didn't respect wrestling as a kid, right? It was
Tell me how you really feel.
as a kid, right? I mentioned that wrestling was almost like the anti-martial art because it was fake, and as a martial, you're always trying to be legitimate, but the roots make so much sense, especially when we've gone back far as we have, where wrestling has really all come from, and you just don't get where we are now without this. It seems like a really incremental step to get to where we are, and it's like that famous line is overnight success that took 20 years to happen. It seems like one of these things. It seems like from before it, the UFC just kind of appears out of nowhere, and it's like, oh no, here's a lot of these incremental, UFC like things that led up to this event.
And the thing, like, it took so long for the UFC to even succeed.
100%.
It took 10 years for the UFC to be
even a remote thing.
to be a thing you could even do most places.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You
100%.
couldn't even bring it to most states.
Yeah, even the idea of mixed martial arts didn't come up till 10 years into
Human
UFC.
cockfighting.
Yeah, that was the main.
Which,
yeah.
fuck, if you see the first one, yes, it is.
And a few other ones. After.
And a few, the first 6.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you've got that 10-year journey for the overnight success of the UFC.
That's it.
But there's another 20-year journey before that of dudes trying to even get, like, they can't even wrap their minds around the fact that they're just going to beat the hell out of each other for real.
Yeah.
They're like you can't sell it.
Yeah.
It's not exciting. It's not profitable. It's not responsible. And also the Yakuza wants to fix it.
Right.
They want to fix everything.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Easy to make money.
So yeah, the UWF to me, super fascinating because I remember the first time I saw it when I was a kid. It was something that my brother would bring home with the UFC. And I kind of thought they were the same thing. I just knew I really liked the UWF more because they seemed to do more.
That's amazing. So, like, the lines were even blurry there in
Yeah.
terms of...
I mean, I was like 7.
Sure.
But it was still something where, like, I thought they were the same.
Yeah.
I just thought one of them took place in Japan, one of them took place in Wyoming or whatever.
That's very, very cool. Yeah, where was the first? No, Boulder, Colorado, I think was the first.
Colorado, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, I thought it was the same. I couldn't really tell the difference at first.
Yeah.
I was probably 11 or 12 when I realized that the UWF was a work.
Yeah.
It was probably just seeing Vader, and I was like, well, you can't wear a mask.
And, like, tooth of
That's not how this works. There's no way.
There
Yeah.
are some tells in there.
There's some tells, yeah. No moonsaults, luckily. But I think the UWF is like such an interesting story, and it's.
Like, what's your favorite part? Like what's like?
I would say the most entertaining part is definitely the UWFI, but like it's entertaining for a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with it being that foundational. It's
Right.
foundational because of pride. Like it's really UWFI is like the bridge between let's find a way to make this real and let's keep working it. Like that UWFI is the real in between spot where Nobuhiko Takada really had no aspirations, I think, of being a real fighter in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The way that Maeda and Sayama did. Maeda and Sayama always did kind of want to be real fighters.
And you can kind of see in what they were,
Their behavior kind of dictates that. I don't think Takada really did. I think Takada wanted to make a lot of money working fights.
But he just realized that, hey, if this is where it's going, like we can do this for
Yeah.
real, and we can make money.
He got forced into it,
Yeah.
whereas I think Maeda and Sayama were on board for this transition. I mean, I know Sayama was. Maeda, hard to tell. Did Maeda just want everyone to think he was really tough while he took cheap shots at people?
Sure.
But I think Takada just wanted to make money. And when it stopped being reasonable for him to make money, like working it, he started making money losing. And sometimes working it. But we're going to get into that next week.
It is. It's fascinating that, I mean, my business right now exists in part because these guys have paved the way to get there, right?
Yeah.
The fact that I can,
The fact that you can have an MMA gym in a city that has other MMA gyms.
Yeah.
You know?
Is insane.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
It's really freaking cool.
In 1993, you could have one karate gym
Oh, I think
and
there
one
were-
judo gym.
I think I
You know?
remember in the yellow pages, back in the day, there was like a little martial arts section in Ottawa, and I think there was always taekwondo and karate. There was always a few, but other than that, I mean, again, there was no BJJ, and then there was like maybe 4 or 5 other businesses doing
Yeah,
other.
there was a judo.
Yeah.
There was a kempo karate.
Yeah,
There was a
yeah.
kyo karate.
Yeah.
And then taekwondo.
Lee Taekwondo.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of, and then
And a boxing gym.
and only one, and even that wasn't. It was Beaver Boxing is the only boxing gym that I was ever. Even
Sorry?
then, they did. It was
Could you say that again?
Beaver Boxing? Yes.
Beaver Boxing.
yes. I actually didn't realize.
Are
how
you
funny
sure that was a boxing
No,
gym?
I'm sure, and they never had but it was a small thing. They'd often have to work out at other people's spots and stuff like that. I only got to train there a couple times, but yes, Beaver Boxing was the. Wow, how did I not
God.
realize how strange that name is until right now?
Really?
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
You didn't. Beaver boxing.
Yeah. That is really fucked up.
Oh man, it was an innocent time.
Yeah.
It was an innocent
I was
time.
innocent at one point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know obviously a little bit more about the history of the UFC, but Pride was something I honestly know very little about. I haven't seen a bunch of Pride fights. We should definitely watch some Pride fights.
We're gonna watch the Pride fights. We got to watch Sakuraba.
Yes.
We've got to watch Takayama and Fry.
Absolutely.
Emelianenko.
I need to. He's one of my all-time faves.
So
yes.
when I was a kid, Pride was like illicit UFC.
Yeah.
Pride was like, did he just jump on his skull?
Did he just stomp his face in the corner?
Yeah. I think I might have said this last week, but it's like Pride made me not want to watch that stuff.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, this is human cockfighting. This is
I
why
mean,
are they
as
allowed to
close
do
as
it?
it gets.
And then later in the night, you'd be watching something, you'd be like,
You're thinking about it.
that was a work. He threw that fight because they would. Pride
Would they?
Pride worked a lot of fights.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because I only would find out.
You know why? Because the Yakuza was there.
It always goes back to the Yakuza.
So it's this.
I mean,
This is
we're
secretly a
Yeah,
Yakuza,
there's no such
podcast.
thing as a Yakuza. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? There's no such thing as the Yakuza?
That's it.
Yeah. So that's the UWF.
And now we get into much more the territory that
Now we're gonna be
familiar
going for a while. We're gonna be going with the main episodes, fights,
fights, and then we're gonna come back to the
mostly legitimate fights,
but it's all gonna circle back around to the pro stuff.
and then we're gonna get back to the pro because it's all cyclical. It's all eventually everyone remembers you can make more money by fixing a fight.
That's a fantastic way to finish.
Always. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat.
Right.
All right, everybody. Thanks a lot. And next week we'll be seeing you to talk about Pride Fighting Championship.
And this is Give Me Lucky for Prettier next time.